Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with theater's biggest names. I am your host, Alan Seals.
And I am your producer, Jillian Hoffman.
And we launched a Patreon.
Yes, we did.
Please visit us at thetheaterpodcast.com/Patreon to show your support in any way that you feel is appropriate. Our basic level is just for support. We have super duper levels that can get you merch, that can get you included in these reflection sections, that get your name in show notes. There's so many different options. And when we get to a certain number of patrons, then we're going to do a couple nice things. Like one of my favorite things that I want to do is really start paying for a service to give us transcriptions so that we can make the episodes more accessible to those who may want to read it instead of listen to it. But anyway, without further ado, this episode is with Christopher Sieber, who is now starring in The Prom on Broadway, which was just nominated for 7 Tony Awards, including Best New Musical. And Jillian, have you noticed that his character, Trent Oliver, continues a trend of characters that he continues to play who are really full of themselves?
Yeah, Christopher has a habit of always picking up really great, juicy characters who are just narcissistic, selfish, crazy men.
But he's nothing like that.
He's so nice.
He's nothing like that. And
that's acting.
There was one thing that I wish I had asked him in the interview that, like, in retrospect, I wish I had that I didn't, was if he actually has a problem playing, or not a problem, but if it's more difficult for him to play the real life character or play the not exaggerated character.
Mm-hmm.
But
he just plays narcissistic so well. Can you play non-narcissistic people? Chris, let us know.
But he also has a reputation. There's been several times when he's gone into full productions with like 4 days notice.
Yeah, he is someone who has just jumped in and said yes, and he trusts his own abilities and knows what he can do. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? So he talks about a couple different shows where he had sometimes less than a week to learn a whole production and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is some true artistry right there.
Yeah, with Spamalot, it was funny because he came in and the sides he was given, he already had memorized since he was a kid.
He was a fan of Monty Python.
Monty Python fan. But yeah, anyway, everyone please enjoy this episode with Christopher Sieber.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today I have the pleasure of speaking with two-time Tony-nominated actor, nominated for his performances in Spamalot as Galahad and in Shrek as the wonderful Lord Farquaad. He's also been seen in Matilda, Pippin, Chicago, Lacage, Thoroughly Modern Millie, and Hair, with a career spanning 25 years on Broadway and a successful TV career which includes one of my personal favorites, Pushing Daisies.
Aww.
In addition to the role of Kevin Burke in Two of a Kind starring Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, he's now starring as Trent Oliver in The Prom, which has been nominated for 7 2019 Tony Awards, including Best New Musical. Chris Sieber, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Hi. Gosh, when you say all that stuff, it's amazing.
25 years?
I know. I was just I've been very lucky. I just went from one thing to the next. So I could, but when you say it out loud, it's crazy.
I cut some stuff too.
I know. You forgot Into the Woods.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Into the Woods. Yeah, with Vanessa Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a little show called Paper Moon where Brooks Ashmanskas and I actually met. We actually did sign a Broadway contract. So we actually consider it a Broadway credit because we did get paid 2 weeks salary when the producer said, we're not coming into New York. So that was 26 years ago where I met Brooks Ashmanskas. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, and now
we
just thinking about all that stuff that you just said, it's insane. Because like I said, 26 years ago, that's kind of when I started. And now we have kids in our show, The Prom, that weren't even born yet.
You have 13 kids.
Yeah,
making
and
their
they're
Broadway
all
debut.
under 26 or less. So it's the liver spots are bursting on my skin. Let me just tell you that.
You don't look a day.
I don't. You know what it is?
Yeah,
sunscreen, moisturizer every day,
Really?
every single day. Yep.
Quick.
Jillian, our engineer here, is shaking her head. Yes. Yeah.
I just don't wash my face.
Oh, you got to wash your face.
That's not true. I do wash my face.
Wash your face, sunscreen, and moisturizer. Just do a 30 SPF every single day. Yeah.
I will do that because
it's really
your
easy.
skin looks really good.
It's really good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Except for the inherited dark circles and eye bags under my eyes.
Yeah, I got those.
Thanks,
too.
Grandma.
Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah.
Grandma.
Thanks, Jewish
for that.
heritage.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks. Thanks, Jane Sieber.
Well, tell me about
Nice
Grandma.
transition there.
Yeah. Well, Jane, let's talk about Jane.
I go off on tangents, just so you know. I will go off somewhere left field, and then we'll finally get back to your question eventually. Anyway.
I will undoubtedly come up with 5 more questions on your
cool.
journey. So
all right,
you're in good company. But tell me about Jane Sieber. Tell me about where you grew up.
Jane Sieber, my grandmother. Okay, well, I grew up in a very small town called Wyoming, Minnesota.
Wait,
and
Wyoming,
Minnesota. It was kind of like a really boring, sleepy little farm town, and they really couldn't come up with an original name, so they named it after a state. So it's Wyoming, Minnesota, the 2 most boring states. Actually, Minnesota is awesome. I love Minnesota. I mean, it gave me. I think it built me who I am now. My resilience and my sense of humor came from that. But we grew up, like a small town. It was a town. It's mostly soybeans, cornfields, and pigs. Is where I grew up. Well, we didn't grow up on a farm. But we grew up downtown Wyoming, which is, it didn't. When I grew up there, when I moved there, it had a population of 642, and they had a 4-way stop. That was it. We had a bar, we had a hardware store,
tiny,
a grocery store, and a gas station, and that is all we had. That's all we had.
Wow.
And a 4-way stop. We had a bank too. Yeah. The first, Wyoming's first state bank.
Did you have a Blockbuster?
No, we didn't have anything. I mean, the nearest town was about 5 miles away, and that was it was a larger, smaller town.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were about 30 miles north of the Twin Cities.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And you're the middle of 3?
I'm middle of 3. 3 boys, yes. Mike is the eldest. I'm the middle. And Mark, my younger brother, is the youngest. And they're both married with kids. And now my older brother has both his kids have left the house. They're empty nesters already.
Wow.
Oh, my God. And my brother's a computer engineer, and he does all sorts of stuff with computers, and he builds firewalls for like McAfee and Norton virus. And it's really cool. He's got this huge computer screen craziness in his one of his rooms in his house, and he works from home and he builds firewalls. It's very kind of like FBI kind of cool stuff.
That's crazy
He's
cool.
Got, that 9-screen layout that you see on the movies. He's got that. Yeah. He does that, and it's really cool.
One of the screen always has the Matrix.
Yeah,
code
it does.
On it.
It's cool. He says, "You want to see my office?" I said, "Sure." So I went in there and I saw this whole huge thing. I was like, "How do you see? What are you doing?" I have no idea. I mean, he doesn't know what I do. I mean, he gets an idea. He sees our finished product, which is the show, but I don't no idea what he does. But anytime I have a computer problem, I said, "Mike, can you fix my computer?" And he's, yeah, bring it over here. So
the answer is less porn.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much the answer every time.
Yeah, you got that fills up the hard drive. Oh,
hey yo,
yeah.
When did performing come in then? And I guess obviously your brother. Did you perform together? And he just was like, "Oh
no." I was always the weird kid in school. I was a young, fat, toad-like boy with thick glasses. I mean, I have thick glasses now, but they're thinner lenses. But I have a very bad vision, and my parents had this fantastic picture window in the front of the house that was almost floor to ceiling, and they had the curtains that went from floor to ceiling, and they would open like a proscenium, like a theater, and I always pictured the front yard as an audience, and I would put on shows in the living room. And my younger brother Mark would act as stage manager, and he would drop a needle on a record, and I'd lip sync to Fiddler on the Roof and Dinah Washington, and Barry Manilow was quite the hit for the Grass. The Grass loved it, and unsuspecting neighbors driving by. I put on shows, and the shows were about 5 minutes long. And I'd put on shows, and I usually just for myself, but imagining, one day that I'd be on a stage and looking out and seeing an audience, or not seeing an audience because they're in the dark. But I would put on shows, and one was called the Christopher Sieber Comedy Cavalcade of 1976. I thought it was funny, but I didn't have quite an audience, And
besides the blades of grass.
Yeah, the blades of grass, and the dogs and the people walking by or riding their bikes by. But yeah, I put on shows, but yeah, I would lip sync to records mostly.
When was this? How old were you?
I was probably seven. I started.
So when did you know?
But you grew up in this small town. There is nothing to do.
And there was no internet?
There was none. I mean, we had, I don't even know what you call it, terrestrial TV, the antenna TV.
Yeah.
That's what we had. And we had 5 channels. That's it. And I had the records. I had my parents had the vinyl records, so I would listen to records all the time with the headphones on and just scream at the top of my lungs and drive them crazy. But it was there was just nothing to do, so I had to entertain myself. And then at school in elementary, it was a very, very small elementary school too. I think there was maybe 60 kids from 1st to 6th grade, about 60 kids total.
Was it all in the same building?
It was in
one
the
of those
same
schools?
building, and there were only 6 classrooms.
Wow.
And 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and that was it.
So
and
you knew everybody.
you really do. You knew everybody. You knew everybody's dog. You knew everybody's car. And the gossip that went around was really juicy.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the dating life was either really good or really bad.
I would not know anything about that. But, so there was nothing to do. So I put on shows and try to entertain myself. And I try to entertain others. But a lot of people just kind of like turn the other way. It was like, oh, that's Christopher. He's just doing weird stuff again.
Well, at what age, you said he was 7 when you were putting on the shows, but at what age did you then realize like, oh, I think I kind of want to make a career out of this? Or did that ever come into
It was
later?
around 3rd grade. Like in the small Wyoming elementary school, I think her name was Miss Bobson, my 3rd grade teacher. They decided that I was special and I had some sort of talent or something, and so they decided, or the gifted children, and so they decided that I should probably be shipped off to Minneapolis once or twice a week to go to the Children's Theater in Minneapolis, where you could be part of something and kind of be in a show or just kind of be around in it or whatever. And that was the first taste of actual experience in front of a huge audience, where I think I played a cookie. I think the play was called The Cookie Jar, and it was the Children's Theater, so of course it's cookies. So I was dressed as a cookie. I didn't have any lines, but I felt the rush of the audience, the applause from the audience, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to do. Oh my God, people get paid for this? Oh my God. And I wanted to do that. I did eventually play. I think I was in a play called The Little Match Girl as well at the Children's Theater.
Did you play the girl or the match?
No, I didn't. I was just a townsfolk, but they had all these layers and levels and stuff like that. And, where you could just jump off, because one scene there was a blackout and the entire town had to disappear. So everybody had to basically jump off these ramps into these big crash cushions. And I remember that was the greatest thrill of all, just being on stage and then disappearing and then getting to fall on a big mat backstage. That was fun. But then hearing the audience applaud that was like crack.
What is that about? I mean, a lot of actors, is it validation? Is it attention? Is it like, what were you getting from the audience that you
I think
felt
because
was,
in my living room, I didn't have applause. I was all
had the
alone.
swaying
The swing,
breeze.
the wheatgrass out the front swaying back and forth. But I think I had finally, I guess maybe validation, But I liked making people laugh, and it was it's kind of like, I was the class clown and I turned it into a career, I always say, because I just made people laugh because I was, like I said, a fat, toady little boy, and the bullies would come after me, and the best way to make them get on your side is to make them laugh. And I would do that. And it just kind of turned in, I knew how to make people laugh. So that's I guess how it happened. And so, yeah.
So then you were getting shipped off to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And then was high school different, or did you?
You know what? And then I
college
skipped,
all
and
that?
then I skipped because you go through puberty and you go through all the ugly phases, and you're just, you're just odd. You don't know who you are, and you're trying to fit in. But I learned too that the less you fit in, the better you are. And if you don't play the game the way everybody wants you to play it, the more you stand out. So I started doing that, and that's indeed what happened. And then I got involved more in speech and theater in high school more than anything. And a local community theater, which is the Maskers Theater Company in Forest Lake, Minnesota, which is 3 miles away from Wyoming, Minnesota. And I did shows with them. And then in high school, I did shows. And there is where it really clicked hard. So much so that I had some teachers in Forest Lake Senior High that saw something in me, and they took me aside, my friends, and I call them friends now because they were amazing. Jane Gillis, Henry Hebert, and Deb Bendix. They took me aside one day. They brought me into the teacher's lounge, and they said, "We need to talk to you." and it was like an intervention. And they said, you need to get out of here. And this was like 11th grade. You need to get out of here. What do you mean? And I'm like tearing up and everything. And I was like,
Thought you were in trouble?
I thought I was in trouble because they, I always hung around not older people, but more mature people. Cause like I said, I didn't play the games of like high school and all. I didn't, I learned that being in a clique doesn't make you popular.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the clique makes you popular. Being part of that makes you popular. But when you actually break it apart, there's nothing there. I mean, I wanted connections with people. So I actually knew people's middle names. I knew their eye color. But you ask anybody in the clique, the popular clique, and I'm using air quotes, how boring. But if you ask anybody in that clique of the perceived popular people, they couldn't tell you anything about these people. They were just a group en masse, and they were protected because they were part of this weird group. Mm-hmm. And I went opposite of that. But anyway, so my teachers, they took me aside and they said, you need to get out of here. You need to find a school in New York, and they make this happen because this is something you should really do. And I said, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. My parents didn't have any money. So they said, well, we'll help you. And they did. They drove me to Minneapolis, and we went to the Minneapolis Public Library, and we looked for schools, and we found a few. And then I was accepted to the American Musical Dramatic Academy in New York City. And then from that point on, I worked my butt off to save every dime I possibly could to get myself to New York. And I came to New York with about, I think, $6,000, which is a lot of money in a year for working basically 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs. Mm-hmm. But I worked every single day, after high school, after school, before school, every weekend. I never had a break. I was just go, 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 because I knew I had to do this. So I paid for my own airfare, and I paid for my own apartment. And I came to New York, and I soon realized that toilet paper just doesn't appear. And soap just doesn't appear. And no one does there's no one to do your laundry. You have to do it. So it was quite the shock for me. But also, $6,000 in 1988, it was a considerable amount of money. And then you live in New York City, and it goes fast. Boy, did it go fast. So I was out of money probably within less than 6 months.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So did you have survival jobs?
Well, because I worked at the last, there was a toy store called The Last Wound Up on 73rd and Columbus Avenue. And it was in 1988, 1989, 1990. I worked there part-time, and it was a little wind-up store. So all these little toys, they had hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of wind-up toys, little plastic things, made in Japan and China. And it was cool. And they had music boxes and everything. And so that's what I did probably 7 hours out of the day. I worked at a wind-up store. Plus I went to school at the same time. Then I worked at Men's Express, the fashion store on Columbus Avenue. And then I worked, I was a personal assistant for this guy named Barry Hendrickson, who had done hair and wigs for The Mystery of Edwin Drood, the original production. And I got to know it. And that was one of my first, I guess, mature. He wasn't mature. I mean, when I met him, he was younger than I am now, but he was probably in his mid to late 30s. And he was the first kind of comfortable, openly gay man that I met in New York City. And he was just fine. And I grew up in Minnesota, in a small town where, of course, you can't do that. You can't be that. Of course, I was. But Barry was this wonderful, wonderful guy who taught me just chill, be cool. It's okay. So you're gay, whatever. And he brought me out. He brought me. This is so gross, but he brought me to. He said, "We're going out." I was like, "Okay, great, we're going out." And I think I'm 19, maybe at this time, maybe. And he said, "We're going to the Eagle," which is, for those of you who don't know the Eagle is pretty much an S&M leather bar for bears, hairy big guys. And there is a back room there. So he says, "I'm not going to let you out of my sight, but we're going in here just so you can see. I'm giving you slices of life, okay? We're not going to stay long, so let's just go. And I just want to show you stuff." So we went down there, and he said, so just come with me. And I got in there. And listen, I am adorable now. You should have seen me when I was 19. I was adorable. So cute. So I walk into this bar, this darkened bar with all these, guys in leather and chains, and they're kind of like, yeah, look at this guy. Look at this young little thing popping in there. Ooh, yeah. And I'm, Barry, don't let me go. Don't let me go. So he says, now come with me. I just want to show you. We're not doing anything. I just want to show you. When he brings me back to the back room, and I said, just peek in. And I was like, oh my. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. They do that? How do they do that? Oh, that's happening. Ooh, wow. Oh my God. Oh, okay. You've seen enough. Now we're going to the Monster, which is still there. It's in Greenwich Village. And upstairs is a piano bar. And he said, so what can I get you to drink? And I said, I don't know. I heard something called a zombie, which is like 13 different kinds of rum or something like that. And I'm 19 at this point. He says, don't worry about it. It's New York. Nobody cares. So he got me a zombie, and I'm like sipping it. It's drinking sweet lighter fluid, basically, is what it is, with some orange juice in it. And so then we stayed there for a little bit, and some lovely people got up to sing. And there at the Monster, it's the community, so it's like a slice of everybody's there. So it was great, and that's when I realized, wow, I shouldn't have to hide anymore, and that was great. So that I credit a lot Barry Hendrickson. He was one of the craziest characters. He's still alive. He's got a little place called Bits and Pieces over on Broadway right now, and he sells makeup and hair stuff. And he did Cher's wig at one point.
Really?
Yeah. So he has a picture of Cher. And
actual Cher, not the Cher
actual
show.
Cher. No, the Cher, the actual Cher. Yeah. Anyway, so wow, where did we go? We took a left turn.
We were talking about your grandma.
Oh, thanks, Jane. Yeah. Oh, my grandmother was very cute. When I moved to New York, that was one of the funny things. She would. I was only here not even a year, and she made all these postcards for me already pre-stamped, so I could write her every day.
Oh,
I know, isn't that sweet?
Oh,
so I wrote her a postcard she gave me like 300, so I had my work cut out for me. But I would write her like, Grandma, because it's a postcard. There's not a lot. You can't just write a tome.
Grandma, I saw the back room of the Eagle.
I saw the back room of the Eagle, and I went to the Monster, had a zombie, and sang at a piano bar. It was awesome. But she sent me all these postcards, and she sent them with me, and I would write her every now and then we would speak on the phone because they said, call, collect. So I'd call, collect. And she said, oh, why don't you sign up for one of them soaps? What? Why don't you sign up for one of them soaps? The soap operas? Yeah. So it's just sign up. Like, I haven't thought of that, Grandma. Of course I'm going to just sign up and get on one of those soap operas.
Show up and say, I'm here now.
I'm here. I'm signing up. She said, why don't you sign up for that Regis and Kathy Lee show? Because then I can see you. So sweet. I mean, come on. That's so sweet. Anyway, so that's Grandma.
I love
Grandma Jane.
People have no idea how the industry operates.
Oh, the thing is,
why don't you just go on TV?
Why don't you just go on? Why don't you just sign up for one of them shows? Just be on one of those shows. It'll be easy. Believe me, it is not. As one has done a few, it is not. It is not.
Well, you were 88, you said. Did you have at any point like regret of like, what am I doing here? You went from this tiny town to the city of millions.
Oh, yeah, it was a shock. I mean, I remember getting on that plane October 3rd, 1988, and with the plane ticket that I purchased myself. And I sat down in the seat, and it was in the very back of the plane, and I didn't even have a window. That's how far back it was. And it was filled with, I like to call these guys Bill Braskies. It's like the business guys with the pagers on their belt and stuff like that. And they have their briefcase, and they travel all the time. And so they're just grumpy. I was sitting next to a Bill Brasky, and I was on the window. I always like the window. And I just burst into tears because I was just, it was scary as hell. It was scary as hell. And, no one there to hold my hand. It was all by myself. I did this all by myself. To take a leap like that is immense. That's insane. You're moving to a city you don't know. I've only been to once, and that was only for like 3 days. And that was like just to check out the school and maybe see the Statue of Liberty. And that was it. So I didn't know the city at all. And I got on a plane, and I landed at LaGuardia, and I took a cab to 73rd and Broadway, and I met the people at the school, and then I was in my new apartment, which was a shithole. It used to be an SRO, And they decided, no, you're going to be rooming with somebody. So it was like maybe a 200, maybe less, 150 square foot studio apartment that I shared with my roommate, Dirk Etches. And we made the best of it. We had a closet that was about as deep as your palm. So you could open it up and you could hang a jacket. I was like, why do they even put a door on here? I don't even know why they put a door on here. We had a small refrigerator and a hot plate. I didn't have enough stove, no stove.
Yeah.
And barely a refrigerator. It was like total college dorm. Luckily, we did have our own bathroom because there were apartments in that. And I use apartments quite loosely. But it was mine. And it was $275 a month. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
Can you imagine paying $275 a month? It was a slum, basically.
Yeah. For New York, yeah.
And I asked the housing coordinator, so what kind of view do I have? And he says, well, you've got a view of a tree. And then when I finally got there, I was like, I want to see my tree that I saw. And no, it was just a dead poison sumac tree outside the window. That's all it was. It's great. And but I remember trying to find a job when I finally did get there. And I was so terrified that anyone who knows New York City, so I was on 73rd and Broadway. I went down across 73rd east to Columbus Avenue, and I went south on Columbus Avenue to 72nd Street, and came back west on 72nd Street and went back to my apartment. And I didn't find a job, so it was useless. It was pointless. Not going to find a job. I went a block. I went one New York City block, and I didn't find a job. So I thought, it's over. I'm never going to have a job. It's over.
And you went back and cried.
And I went back and cried.
So that was 88. AMDA's two-year certificate, yes?
What's this?
2-year certificate is AMDA?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then 90, you graduate.
Yeah.
You're out in the world.
Yeah.
And you made your Broadway debut in 94.
Uh-huh.
So 4 years is not bad for
was
a
that,
Broadway.
Christmas Carol?
That was Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Gaston.
Was that 94? No, it wasn't.
That's what
it was 99.
What?
It was 99, I think. Yeah.
Did I typo?
Yeah, it was 99.
All right.
But
so
94, that was around when Brooks Ashmanskas and I did Paper Moon. So you are technically correct.
There you go. 94.
Technically correct. Brooks Ashmanskas and I met, and we were adorable. And it was this new show based on the novel and movie of Paper Moon, written by Larry Grossman and the lyrics by Ellen Fitzhugh and Carol Hall. And we had, who was it? Christine Ebersol, Greg Harrison, Linda Hart was in it. And we thought, both of us, it was our Broadway debut. So we did it out at Paper Mill Playhouse. And I had never worked there before. This was kind of a humongous deal for me. I remember I had a line and I had to audition for the show. Well, of course I had to audition for the show, but my roommate, my former roommate, Katie Finneran. It's so crazy how you know people from your life. Andre Burns was my roommate at one point too. Crazy. Anyway, so I called her when I got this audition. They said, hey, here is a line that you have to say in the audition. And so come in with your song and come in with your dancing and blah, blah, blah. And but you're going to have to read this line, because we want to see how you do it. Fine. And the line was, well, there you are. I wondered where you gone to. Hey, where's your paw? And so I called Katie Finneran on the phone. And I said, Katie, can you help me with an audition? I have a line that they want me to say, and I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. And she was like, yeah, okay. Because she was in my favorite year at the time at Lincoln Center. And so I said the line to her. She says, Chris, that is so good. You're so good. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. Like, do you think so? Do you really think so? And she was right. I got the part. I got this part. And it was the photographer in the show. I mean, I was other parts as well, but I played the photographer that I put Addie Prey on the moon. And there's a sad picture of her alone on the moon. And that's my line. Hey, there you are. I wonder where you gone to. Where's your paw? And I'm thinking, so I got this part now. I might be eligible for a Tony Award. I might have myself a Tony nomination for my very first and for my one line. One line.
They should make a category for best one line.
One line. Or best cross.
Best role with
Best cross.
Yeah, best cross with under 10 lines
Yes,
in a Broadway
exactly.
production.
Yeah.
Yeah, best breakout role.
But what happened? I'll just wrap up on Paper Moon because it was quite the experience and it was quite the awakening for a young actor who wants to be on Broadway so badly. And the first time it ever happens to you, it doesn't happen. The box office was open at the Marriott Marquis Theater, and our poster or our marquee was up, and our names were on the poster board. You know, the whatever they call that. What do they call that? The thing with the names.
With the
what
name.
What is that called?
The
name
box
thing.
with the name box.
Names.
Yeah.
So our names are on it. So come
the
on.
Broadway cast box names.
Yeah. It's the thrill of seeing your name on a Broadway theater in a Broadway show that you're part of for the very first time. That is insanely cool. That's great. So Roger Berlind, our producer, things weren't going well out of town. People were fighting, and it was just, but Brooks and I, we didn't really know this because this is our first experience. So we're just like, hey, I guess this is what it's like. Fine, yay. But we were so excited. So Roger Berlind comes in one day about 2 weeks prior to us closing at Paper Mill Playhouse. And he says, I just wanted to talk to everybody. I have everyone's Broadway contracts right here. And he said, I want you all to sign them right now. And we all signed their Broadway contract right there, then and there. And he says, made sure that everyone signed them and got them back to him. And then after he says, as long as now that I have them all back, I just want to let you know we're not going to Broadway. Now, the thing about that is per equity and the production rules is you if a show closes after you sign your Broadway contract, but you never go to Broadway, you get 2 weeks pay of Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some producers would never, ever do that, but Roger Berlind was not that producer. Roger Berlind was classy. I think he's still alive, but he was wonderful. He was wonderful, and he made sure, because he knew there were a lot of people going to be crushed and disappointed. So he made sure that we signed a Broadway contract and we got 2 weeks Broadway pay. I mean, that is cool. That's classy.
That's respectable.
Really classy. So that's why I count Paper Moon as a Broadway show.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
He didn't have to do that.
No, he didn't have to at all.
He could have said, we're not going in, bye.
Yeah, that speaks a lot to someone's character doing things like that. But the other roles you've had, so you've been Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, and Lord Farquaad in Shrek, Sir Galahad in Spamalot, and now even Trent Oliver in the Prom. All of them are kind of full of themselves.
Yeah.
It is
apparently that's my gift. There's two things. If it's funny and I can hurt myself, get Sieber. I've hurt myself so many times. And yes, I play arrogant very well, apparently. I guess, because I'm completely not that way.
Yeah, you don't seem arrogant.
I am not. No. Anything. I'm just like, but I found a niche, and also a quick replacement. If you need someone in a second, I'm your guy. I'll go in a show in 4 days, which I've done before.
For which show?
2. 3, maybe 4. I don't know. Let's see. Spamalot was one, because what happened was I was supposed to audition for the show originally, but I had just come back from doing company in Los Angeles at Reprise and playing Bobby. And that show and that role will make you kind of go down a rabbit hole. So I was so emotionally and physically exhausted. And I took the red eye home to audition at like 11 a.m. from Los Angeles. And I slept through the whole thing. And I didn't wake up till 4. And my phone was ringing like crazy. And people thought I was dead. My husband finally came in and he woke me up. He says, you missed your audition. I was like, what happened? So I missed the audition, so I didn't get the job. Doug Sills got the job. Anyway, months had passed, and Doug decided that he doesn't understand the comedy of this, and he wanted to leave. He wants to go. I know. He was like, it's time to go. So Bob Boyette, who was the producer of the show, was a friend of mine who produced my first TV show. He said, I have something for you, and you can't say anything. All I have to say is, I need you tomorrow, and have your agent call Tara Rubin, the casting director. I was like, that's very cryptic, Bob. That's very cryptic. What is it? He said, I need you to come in to replace Doug Sills in Spamalot. I was like, well, shit, that's insane. Okay, great. Okay, so the next morning, I get a call from Tara Rubin, and it's 7 a.m. and I'm doing City Opera at the time, so I'm up until 11:30, late and you get a call. So I'm sleeping in normally, and she says, "Hey, can you be in front of Mike Nichols and Eric Idle the next day at by I think it was 9:30 or 10 a.m. or something? Can you do that?" And I said, "Call me back because I really don't know what you're saying anymore because I just woke up. Hold on, just give me a second." So she sends me the script and she sends me the sides. She said, "Can you read the script?" And I was like, "I have an hour to read an entire script and memorize the sides." She says, "Yeah. Do you have a comedy song?" I said, "No, but I'll find one. I'll make something up. It's fine." So I go in there. And luckily the scene that I was doing, because I love Monty Python and I grew up watching that because that was the one channel that you could get in Minnesota was PBS, and they would play Monty Python after 10 p.m., which is way past my bedtime. So I would sneak downstairs and watch Monty Python, and it made me laugh. But then the Holy Grail movie came out, and I watched that incessantly, like to the point where it was like crack. It was like crack. I had to have it. I had to watch it. So the scene they gave me was Dennis Mudd scene, which is what we call Dennis Mudd scene. And I knew it like the back of my hand because I've known it my entire life. And so I looked at the side and was like, "Oh, I know this. I even know the dialect. I know everything about it." So I went in there and and Mike Nichols even said, "My boy, how do you know this scene? It's so complicated." And I was like, "I've known this since I was 9. Okay." And he says, "Okay, all right." Then I sang Agony from Into the Woods, but I sang it like someone with a split personality, and apparently it worked because they laughed. So, and then that day I started rehearsals, and we were going to Chicago to start the show at the Sieber Theater in Chicago. The first thing they did was they threw me into the other room to get my measurements and put a costume on me and started doing the costumes. And then that's the first time I ever met Sara Ramirez, and they shoved me in a room with her, and we did the song that goes like this. And then that night I burst into tears crying, freaking out because I was like, what's happening? What's happening? So, but that was, and then, so Fast, that was a quick replacement. A quick replacement was in Thoroughly Modern Millie after I took over from Mark Kudish after I did Into the Woods. No, was it? Yeah, Into the Woods. And they gave me 4 days. And so I did that, which is crazy to learn a patter song like that in 4 days. You know, you'll never forget a patter song. Enclosed, you'll find a small container of the stuff I talk about. Just carefully remove the lid and take a whiff if you without. You never forget those. And then I went into, La Cage aux Folles with Harvey Fierstein at the Longacre Theater where the Prom is playing right now. And Jeffrey Tambor, who was playing George at the time, had hip surgery or something, and he just he could barely move anymore. And so I was going to go back into the show Chicago, this long, sordid road that I'm telling you. But I was going back into the show Chicago to play Billy Flynn, which I think was my 3rd time playing at the Ambassador Theater. I get a phone call while I'm at the box office, them saying, "No, we don't want you to see Chicago today. To refamiliarize yourself with the show that you're about to go into that you haven't done in 5 years. So yeah, let's go see another show instead. Let's go see La Cage aux Folles, which is great. Fine, whatever you want." I went over there. Harvey is a good friend of mine, so I'm watching him, and Jeffrey Tambor is nowhere to be found. So I was like, well, that's odd. My friend Chris Hoke, who had understudied me many times, is on stage opposite him as George. And after the show, David Babani, the producer, finds me in my seat, and he grabs me and he says, "Harvey wants to see you." And I was like, of course, absolutely. So I go up backstage after the show, and I knock on Harvey's dressing room door, and all you hear is "Enter!" And he's strapped in like a towel, like robe with like a turban on, and his eyes get really big, and he opens the door and he says, "Get in here." He grabs me, he slams the door, he throws me on his couch. He says, "Are you gonna do the show with me? Are you gonna do the show with me?" It's like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what's going on. He said, "Jeffrey Tambor just up and left. He just up and left me. I did one night stands that lasted longer." And so Jeffrey just left. So I said, okay, what's happening? He says, "Yeah, so I want you to do it opposite me." And I was like, "Oh, yes. When do I start?" "Now." Like, okay. So 7 days later, I'm playing opposite Harvey. They gave me more time, but I was like, come on, let's just do it. Let's just throw it in there. Let's just go. Anybody who knows the show and knows Harvey, and at this point, anybody seeing the show knows the drama because it was good. Michael Riedel did a thing about it, and it was like crazy. Look at him go. And it was, of course, just terrifying. But of course, I was there with my friend Harvey, so
Yeah.
and he guided me, and to watch him do that was insane.
It was a very good impression.
Oh well, I've known him a long time.
Yeah.
I've known him a long
Do you ever impersonate him for him?
No. But I can tell when he has a cold.
So I want to fast forward to the prom here
Yes.
because you were involved. Gosh,
Since day one.
Day one,
Yeah.
7. How many years
almost
ago?
7 years.
7 years ago. Right?
We're not quite sure of the date, but we just keep saying 7.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty much 7 years. Yeah.
But the character was created for you.
Yeah.
Like, tell me that whole story. Like,
Well, so what happened, Casey Nicolau and I worked together a couple times as early Modern Millie. He was in the ensemble. And I was Trevor Graydon. Yeah, Trevor Graydon. But Broadway's weird because you know everybody, even though if you never work with each other, you just know each other. It's just high school where everybody's cool and everybody's fun. And so I was walking on the street one day, and we did Spamalot, of course. And after he just approached me, he says, "Hey, I was about to call you." I was like, "What?" I said, "I've got something for you." It's like, "What? What is it?" "We don't know." I was like, "Okay, great. Sounds fun." And he says, "I'll call you in like 2 weeks, and we'll meet up at my place, and we'll just read it because we don't know what it is, but we think there's something there." So I was like, "Great." So I get there, and Brooks, Beth, Angie, and myself are there, and Matthew Sklar is playing the piano and singing. I think he had 2 or 3 songs already done. He didn't have all of them. Bob Martin was there, of course, and Chad Beglin were there, and Casey Nicolau was there. And we read this thing. It was no title. And I don't know if the characters had names yet. I think Trent was always Trent, but I don't think Dee Dee Allen was always Dee Dee Allen, like Beth's part. And we read this thing, and they didn't tell us it. They wrote it with us in mind, that we just kind of read it, and it obviously, clearly just clicked with all of us because they know us well. And it just turned into this, and we all kind of, after we read, and it wasn't even finished. I mean, we didn't really have the end of Act 2 until, gosh, right before we left for Atlanta, which was 4 or 5 years later. And we just clicked, and we all kind of sat back in our chairs like, wow, this is something. This is something cool. And we all 4 of us have never not been involved. No one else has played these parts ever.
Wow.
Ever. And that's a rare thing. And first of all, it's rare that somebody says, "Hey, I wrote something for you. Come play with us." Plus, then I knew Bob, I knew Chad, I knew Matthew, I knew Casey. We knew everybody. So it was like getting into a room with people and just kind of playing. And it was the safest, most comfortable for comedy to be in. Because if we were going to make a mistake, make it. And it was awesome. And then we can point and laugh at each other. That's what we did the entire process. The room that we were in creating this, the rooms that we were in there creating it, it was always fun. There was always laughter. It was hard work, but it was so much fun, hard work. Beth, I always say Beth because Beth is so brilliant. And she said it in an interview one time, and I always steal it. But she said it was the easiest hard work that we've ever done.
Well, you all seem like genuine friends.
We are friends.
Yeah, like
we are.
You've known each other.
We've known each other for a long time,
decades.
and it comes across on stage.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day. I was like, "Do you guys just like on stage? You guys just like improving and fooling around?" I was like, "No," because it was created that way. It was created where we're just kind of throwing around things and using Bob and Chad's script, and then we would kind of add things. But if it worked, it was in the script, and if it didn't, it was out. It was fine. And we tried everything, and so people said, "So you guys are just," because it seems like it's just kind of happening, and which is great, which is what you want.
Spontaneous.
Spontaneous,
yeah.
like it's happening, like you're actually having a conversation, and that you know each other, and that there are lots of different energies. That you like this person more than you like this person, and that comes across. And they said, "So you're improvising?" I was like, "No." All of that is scripted. If you look at the script at the same time that we're saying and doing the show, it's all there. It seems like it's kind of just like whatever, comes off the cuff, but it's not.
Yeah, the 4 of you together work absolutely brilliantly, and yeah, it fits. Like it's obviously made for all of you in mind.
Yeah.
So,
and that never happens. That never happens.
Yeah, for the 4 originals to stick with it the entire time. Yeah, that's crazy. Whose idea was it to make your character all obsessed with Juilliard?
Well, that was covered. There was a thing between it was Chad Bob and myself, because Trent was kind of the character that they didn't, because they really wanted to develop a story with Barry, Brooks, and Caitlin, Emma. They really wanted to develop that story, and then to develop the story with Beth and Mr. Hawkins, the principal. And Angie and I are definitely supporting characters, so the one thing is, you knew who Angie was, you knew who Brooks was, and you knew who Beth was, but you really didn't know who Trent was. You didn't really know who he was. And so I was always trying to find ways, how can you make him, who is he? Why is he, just to make a character real and breathe.
Right.
So I kept on coming up with this ideas that he was obsessed with. I based him on a couple people, one in which that he had a Tony nomination long time ago, but he's still living and dressing as if he is in that era. And he won't let you forget about it, that he was once nominated for a Tony Award way back, way back, a long time ago. And so one of the ideas, rather than Juilliard, was that he would be wearing a show jacket from that era of some obscure show. Or then I thought maybe if it was like Starlight Express, that but he's wearing like, it's a satin jacket, so dated. But it was his glory day, and he can't let go of the glory day. And so they decided, how about that he's obsessed with Juilliard, and he just never shuts up about it. And that was one of the ideas. Or he talks about Starlight Express. He's always talking. So we decided, because who knew if there was going to be any sort of lawsuit? It was like, you can't talk about Starlight Express like that. But Juilliard. We've had a lot of Juilliard students come, and they're like, "Oh, you nailed him! You nailed him! I know him. I completely know who he is." And but yeah, he's a hard character to play, because if you read it, Trent's not funny. I mean, that's the part of the humor, and why he is funny is because he's not funny. He tries to be, but he's just a bore. He's a weird man. And he's not funny. And that's what's funny about him. He's just boring as hell. And it's just like, he just goes on and on and on. And that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. But so the show itself, I mean, there's the four of you are the four, I put in air quotes, washed up celebrities, exaggerated versions of your real life selves. But it's also like the story of 17-year-old lesbian played by Caitlin, who's barred from taking her girlfriend to the prom. So there's like a real message. There's a real retribution going on underneath. Like, what kind of audience feedback do you get? Has this like sort of changed you as a person?
Well, the one thing that I guess I don't know if it surprised, I think it surprised me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. When we were in Atlanta, we were at the Alliance Theater, and we tried it out there, and we put it up, and that's where we finally staged it with a set and costumes and orchestrations and everything. And that's when your show really comes together. And you kind of need all those elements to make something happen. We would have talkbacks after the show, and we were still in development, so the show was not set by any means. We're still futzing with stuff and, seeing if we change this or we change that, maybe, and we would have talkbacks afterwards, and there would be it's Atlanta, Georgia, so it's kind of a purple city. So we would have people saying, young lesbians or young gay kids would say stuff and get choked up because they finally saw themselves represented. And then we had people say that if I had really truly known what the show was about, if I knew what it was about, I probably wouldn't have come. But I'm so glad I did, because it changed my mind. Mm-hmm. And we had one woman say, Mrs. Green is kind of like the antagonist in our show, and she is Alyssa's mom, and Alyssa's the other lesbian in the show. And we didn't want to make her an enemy, the mom. She's the antagonist, but we didn't want to make her an enemy. So we made her eventually a mom who just cares so much about her daughter and doesn't want her daughter to have a hard life. And so that was really hard. That was one of the hardest things we had to, Bob and Chad did, but there was a woman at a talkback, and she says, I am Mrs. Green. I am Mrs. Green. And she started getting choked up. And then we went out to the lobby and she said, I would like to introduce you to my grandchild. And this is my daughter. And this is my daughter's wife. I mean, right? Are you crying? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how beautiful is that? I mean, that we hear that as far as feedback, we hear, Ryan Murphy bought out our show one night. He had kids from the Hedrick Martin Institute there, about 300 of them who had probably A, never seen a Broadway show, and B, never saw themselves represented in such a way. And it was, the response from them was insane. It was like a sitcom audience. It was the best audience we've ever had. It was just immense. And the tears they had. And I have a song in Act 2 called Love Thy Neighbor, where it's about the Bible. And it's about, you can't just say, it says to be gay in the Bible is wrong. So it says so in the Bible and we follow the Bible. And I said, well, there's a lot of other things in the Bible that there's a lot of rules that you're probably breaking too. And they're like, well, that's different. One of the kids says. And then the entire audience of these kids are like, how? How is it different? How? Like anger, because that's stuff, you had to deal with their entire lives, including mine. And like, how? And nobody ever responds like that, but they were there because they were trying to defend themselves. But then, it's a great number. And of course, everything ends up in the happy place at the end. It was insane. The tears. And every night after a show, every single show at the outside the stage door, someone signing autographs. There's a kid or 2 or 3 or 10 shaking and crying. And I give them a hug and I say, thanks for coming, and I see you, and you matter. So,
wow.
God, I wish I had a show like this when I was growing up.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I've heard from a couple others in the show too that I've talked to, that they see themselves represented for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just like I can't say enough good things about the Prom.
Without making, we don't make fun of anybody.
No.
If anything, it's all us. We make fun of ourselves.
Make fun of Broadway.
We make fun of Broadway and ourselves. I remember somebody was writing, it was like the finger point, like Love Thy Neighbor, My Number. It was like a finger pointery number. And I was like, well, it's really not, because it's all true. We're not pointing fingers at all.
Yeah.
We're just kind of saying the truth,
Yeah.
And, we say Trump 12 times in the show, in the song. So if you're a supporter, be happy.
Well, in the interest of time,
I know we're
going to wrap this.
TikTok. I got to go. I got to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I know. I got to keep myself in shape for Broadway.
So we have 3 questions here that I always ask.
The wrap up?
Yeah, this is the wrap up. Okay. I always ask everybody to close us out. The first question, simply, what motivates you?
What motivates me?
Yeah.
Fear. I guess.
Fear of?
Fear of like not being able to do this. I gotta go. I gotta keep going. It's stagnant. I can't just sit around. I have fear of doing nothing. I have to do stuff. I have to create something. Fear of not creating. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I accept.
Okay.
What advice would you give to What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Don't sweat the small stuff. As you get older, you don't know everything, first and foremost. Yes, I still don't know everything. I'm a lot calmer now that I've gotten older. Don't sweat stuff. The stuff you think is really important right now, you'll realize probably in 5 or 7 years, maybe even less, it's really not that important. As long as you're healthy and you're happy and you're kind, you should be good.
Cool. And then last question, if you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what show would you see?
Not including ours?
Any show.
Including, what the thing is about doing a Broadway show, that it's a hit, and you're in it, you never get to see it.
Have you ever seen your own show?
I have never seen my own show. No, I never saw Shrek. Because I was in it.
Yeah.
Spamalot, never saw it. Well, I saw it afterwards, but it's not with us, it's like I saw the other production. It's not the same. So I would love to see, I would kind of like to see me and everybody in the cast in the show of the Prom. I would love to see that.
Can you call out one day and just
I
sneak
can't.
in?
See, that's the thing. You have to be in it because we're the 4 people that are kind of like the clockwork. So if I was out, it would be really weird for me. I would have to watch me do it. You know what I mean? Like step outside, like being a what is that? Bizarro world, a bizarro world where I, because I'd have to see the whole thing with everybody, the original cast. That's all. And that's the thing. When you're in a hit Broadway show, you never get to see her.
That's right. Well, we can find you online on Twitter at The Real Sieber.
Yep.
And it's Instagram. Man, great with the typos. Instagram at Christopher_Sieber.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere else?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right.
They'll find me.
Yeah. You can get more of me and the Theater Podcast, theaterpodcast.com/Patreon to support us, at Theater_podcast on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook.com/official Theater Podcast. Please rate, review, leave a review. We love to read
5 stars.
those.
5 stars. 5 stars.
This is produced by Jillian Hockman, music by Jukebox the Ghost. Chris Sieber, thank you. I have enjoyed this so much.
Yeah, me too. Had a nice time. Thank you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.